Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Monica. Welcome to episode 3 of our Periodontology Master Series. In this episode, we are going to understand one of the most fascinating structures at the tooth-gingiva interface, the junctional epithelium. So let's understand its structure, attachment, and role in periodontal defense. So let's first understand why junctional epithelium is so special. So firstly comes the attachment. So junctional epithelium, it forms specialized epithelial attachment at the tooth surface that attaches the gingival tissue to the tooth. Second comes the defense. So the junctional epithelium, it allows the neutrophils, antibodies, GCF and antimicrobial components to move towards the gingival sulcus where they can help to control whenever there is a microbial challenge. So junctional epithelium is not just an wall, it's an active defense interface. Third is the renewal. So junctional epithelium, it continuously replaces its cells with a rapid turnover which helps maintain its integrity. So we can think that junctional epithelium, it's a living biological seal that attaches, that defends and continuously renews itself. But unlike a wall, has to remain open enough to allow the periodontium to defend itself. So now let's see where the junctional epithelium lies. So junctional epithelium, it lies between the sulcular epithelium above and the tooth surface below. So the junctional epithelium, it has two limits, that is the coronal limit, which is the base of the gingival sulcus, and the apical limit is at the level of the cemento-enamel junction. Now let's understand how the junctional epithelium develops. Before eruption, the crown is covered by the reduced enamel epithelium, which is derived from the enamel organ. As the tooth starts erupting into the oral cavity, the reduced enamel epithelium, it comes into contact with the oral epithelium. Now the cells between the reduced enamel epithelium and the oral epithelium in the central region, they degenerate, while the peripheral cells, they reorganize and they start migrating. We can see a formation of a shallow crevice between the tooth surface and gingiva, which creates a gingival sulcus. And the peripheral cells of reduced enamel epithelium, they become the junctional epithelium, which attaches the gingival surface to the tooth. So now let's understand the histological features of junctional epithelium. So junctional epithelium, it comprises of few cell layers of non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium with wider intercellular spaces and fewer desmosomal attachments. There is no rete ridges. Also, the junctional epithelium attaches to the tooth surface via hemidesmosomes. So now let's understand what makes junctional epithelium so permeable. So the wide intercellular spaces and the fewer desmosomes, they lead to the greater permeability of the junctional epithelium, which allows the defense cells and antibodies to move into the sulcus to let the nutrients and oxygen reach the gingival tissues, and also allows the waste products and bacteria to move out for immune surveillance. So now let's understand how the junctional epithelium attaches to the tooth surface. So we have enamel and dentine. So enamel cuticle, it is found in the enamel to which the junctional epithelium attaches with the help of hemidesmosomes. So at this level, there is no connective tissue fiber insertion into the junctional epithelium. So now let's understand the junctional epithelium, which is the immune gateway. So firstly, let's understand the gingival sulcus, which is the space between the tooth and gingiva, and it is the entrance to the subgingival microenvironment. And now below the junctional epithelium, we have connective tissues, which is rich in collagen fibers and fibroblasts and immune cells. And also we have blood vessels which provide nutrients and they remove waste, and they serve as route for immune cell trafficking. So whenever there is infection, so junctional epithelium, it becomes the first line of defense that senses and it communicates and protects the underlying periodontal tissues. So now let's understand how the junctional epithelium acts as a gateway for immune defense through neutrophil migration. So the neutrophils, they continuously leave the bloodstream through diapedesis. They enter the connective tissue and then they migrate through the junctional epithelium, which has wide intercellular space and fewer desmosomes, and therefore now the neutrophils, they exit into the gingival sulcus. Once they reach the gingival sulcus, the neutrophils, they perform three major functions. First one is the continuous surveillance. Here the neutrophils, they are constantly present in the sulcus, even in the clinically healthy gingiva. Second step is the bacterial recognition. That is, the neutrophils, they will recognize the bacteria and the bacterial byproducts. Third is they phagocytose, or the neutrophils, they engulf and they digest the bacteria. Now fourth one is, that is, they help in controlling the microbial challenge and they protect the underlying periodontal tissues from further infection. So now let's understand the role of junctional epithelium in the dentogingival defense system. So we have primary defense and secondary defense. In the primary defense, we have oral cellular epithelium, which acts as a physical barrier. Then we have the junctional epithelium, which attaches the tooth surface via the hemidesmosomes, and it prevents the apical migration of plaque and its byproducts. And then we have the GCF, which basically flushes out the irritants and reduces the bacterial products. So these three, they are in the first line of defense. In the second line of defense, we have the connective tissues, then we have the periodontal ligament and the alveolar bone. So now let's understand the effect of persistent plaque on dentogingival junction. So in healthy periodontium where there is no plaque, the junctional epithelium is attached at the level of cemento-enamel junction. There is intact connective tissue attachment. This gingival sulcus is shallow. We can see healthy bone levels and the GCF flow is also normal. In case of plaque accumulation as seen in gingivitis, we can see inflammatory response in the gingiva, that is vasodilation, edema, increased GCF flow. But the position of the junctional epithelium remains unchanged here, but we can see functional alteration such as increased permeability and leukocyte migration. Sulcus may deepen. Now, with the persistence of the plaque as seen in early periodontitis, what happens is it causes continued inflammation, and we can see that the junctional epithelium, it loses its original attachment at the CEJ and it migrates apically along the root surface. And we can see there is loss of connective tissue attachment, and there is increased gingival sulcus depth, and there is initial alveolar bone resorption, which is visible. Now, in case of advanced periodontitis, there is continued apical migration of junctional epithelium, and we can see formation of periodontal pocket. There is severe loss of attachment, and there is marked alveolar bone loss. So, junctional epithelium, it becomes long, thin, and ulcerated in areas, and here the barrier function, it is compromised. So now let's understand the clinical significance of junctional epithelium. So healthy junctional epithelium, it provides periodontal protection by sealing the tooth, and on periodontal probing, the pocket depth will be less than 3 mm. The inflamed junctional epithelium will lead to increased permeability and inflammatory changes, and also breakdown of connective tissue attachment. So clinically, there will be bleeding on probing, and there might be periodontal pocket formation. So apically migrated junctional epithelium, it leads to periodontal pocket and attachment loss, and also there can be bone loss. Coming to the healing and long junctional epithelium, it is seen after therapy, and when the junctional epithelium, it reattaches to the tooth. The long junctional epithelium forms a new protective seal. So if you have liked the content, please like, share and do subscribe to this channel. Thank you.